Listen, this isn't clickbait. XRP supply is drying up fast, and when it's gone, price doesn't climb. It explodes. We're talking about a lawsuit win that flipped XRP from regulatory risk to regulatory clarity. Over the counter desk, already getting drained while you don't see it on the chart yet. Banks gearing up to hold XRP as a core settlement asset. Spot ETF demand waiting like a vacuum to suck up what's left. And Ripple's co-founder hinting at the bond markets, the biggest liquidity pool in the world. This isn't a maybe someday story, folks. The fuse is lit right now. Stick around because by the end of this video, I promise you, you're going to understand exactly why XRP could vanish from exchanges before the masses even realize what has happened. You see up here on this image, XRP, it's getting sucked up. It's getting removed from the exchanges. Their supply just keeps on going down. This is going to lead us to one of the biggest supply shocks that we have ever seen on an asset. Now we talk about the Ripple vs. SEC lawsuit because everyone thought that this was a death sentence for XRP. Well, guess what? It turns out it was the origin story. The verdict here gave something that to XRP that Bitcoin and Ethereum still don't have. That is judicial clarity. No gray area, no guessing game. That signal win created a bond in the community. Holders move coins off the exchanges, lock them up, and guess what? We're not selling. Institutions, well, they finally have the green light. Since July 2023, XRP added nearly 180 billion in market cap, and that's just the start. Regulatory clarity is a moat, and every new corridor, every new partnership, every new product like Ripple's RL USD is just another supply sink. And guess what? The float, it's shrinking, and the markets, well, they haven't woken up just yet, folks. And look, if you want to build a real XRP game plan before the supply shock hits, book a one-on-one strategy call with me. In 60 minutes, we'll craft your entries, your exits, your long-term compounding plan so you don't chase those candles later. The link is down below in the description of all my YouTube videos. And let's talk about this. Jake did a 2-minute or a minute video clip here talking about over-the-counter desk and dark pools. Here's the truth. Institutions, they don't buy XRP on Binance or Coinbase. They go through over-the-counter desk. They do it quietly off the exchanges so the price doesn't spike. But those desks, they're not bottomless pits. They have to source these coins from somewhere. And as demand ramps, guess what? The refill points are the exchanges. That's when the charts start to flip overnight. Right now, XRP, it looks calm publicly. But behind the curtains, inventory, it's being drained. And when over-the-counter runs dry, retail, we'll see how brutal this move is going to be. Order books vanished, your spreads widen, price gaps up. That's the supply shock in motion, silent until it isn't. Listen to this clip.
I saw your video on dark pools. Wouldn't they be able to run invisible indefinitely? Thus, the price never changes or the moves. See, this is the misconception that you're going to get from a lot of people. They think that there's some type of infinite supply in the background for XRP, and there's not. There are big players that do want to buy and sell XRP at scale, and they will participate in the dark pools, but eventually those people are going to run out, especially if we're seeing price appreciation and we're seeing the actual utility of the asset, or it gets another designation, we get stablecoin regulation. There's a lot of reasons why people will just want to hold their XRP, especially if they have large amounts of it. So then the only option will be to go to exchanges because there won't be enough liquidity in the dark pools to be able to cover the buy orders that are going to be there. And that's when you're going to see huge demand on the exchanges that's far in excess of what we see today and why the price has just been trending sideways here. You'll see the chart gap up. It could be 2, 3, 5, 10, 12, 20x. Retail only has maybe 1 to 2 billion XRP in total. There's not enough to cover the demand that's going to be insatiable from exchanges and spot ETFs and futures market and all the other things that are going to transpire here. They're going to have to move to exchanges, and it will have to push the price up to a level where people are willing to sell. And most people in the XRP community or XRP family, they're not giving it up for anything less than.
Folks, I'm telling you, these over-the-counter desks, we don't know their true numbers, but what we do know is that there's going to be a massive supply shock and there is going to be a repricing event. We spoke about it on Bitcoin, $1 to 100,000. XRP is going to have that same moment. It's going to have its repricing moment. Once all these institutions come out publicly and tell you what they are going to be using and doing with XRP on the back end, it is game over. Let me get to this. Banks can afford not to hold XRP. This is just more information on the supply shock. But I want to jump over to the banks because banks cannot afford not to hold XRP. Ripple put out this article here talking about XRP can cut the bank's global settlement. So let's talk about this for a second, because banks waste billions of dollars by parking money in nostro accounts around the world. It's just dead cash sitting idle. XRP fixes that. One domestic account, XRP as the bridge, instant settlement, and up to a 60% savings. But here's the kicker. To run those corridors, these banks must hold XRP in its reserves, not as a trade, but as working capital. That XRP gets locked in cold storage, tied up in treasuries, or deployed in payment rails. Translation? Well, every bank onboarding XRP is just another supply shank. And unlike traders, banks don't flip their bags. They hold them to operate. That's why the float is collapsing right under our noses. You see on the screen, XRP to bridge every currency in the world. And it can save these banks up to a 60% savings. They no longer need to hold this money in just these dormant accounts that is sitting there waiting for someone to make a cross-border payment just so they can move their money around through the old Swift system and their Excel banking sheet on the back end and transfer funds. They don't need it. They get one account with XRP and it taps in to the new financial system, which is being created right in front of our very eyes. Now let's talk about the ETFs, the biggest catalyst of them all. And we talk about ETFs a lot because this is our next big step for price appreciation in XRP. Picture this, XRP spot ETFs, dozens of them, right? Every inflow means market makers sucking XRP off exchanges and locking it into custody forever. Forever. We saw what ETFs did for Bitcoin. Supply, it vanished overnight. Now apply that to XRP, but apply that to where over-the-counter already drained the easy supply, banks are holding XRP operationally, and retail is holding harder than ever. An ETF launch is going to act like a giant vacuum hose, pulling XRP straight into the black hole custody. And with so little left on exchanges, price wouldn't grind, folks. It's going to gap, and there's going to be massive gaps. And the demand for XRP is just going to shoot up, and price is going to keep climbing, and people are just going to keep FOMOing in. But we all been here. We understand the game. We know where this is going. We see the writing on the wall. We are already positioned. Now we are just waiting for XRP to have that Bitcoin moment with the repricing event and the supply shock. And trust me, it's coming. And then Arthur Brittle put this out. Very interesting. Back in 2013, Arthur Brittle, Ripple's co-founder, if you do not know, he stated, I believe Ripple will eventually support bonds in the bond markets. That's not a throwaway line. Bonds are the biggest market in the world. We're talking tens of trillions of dollars flowing globally. If even a fraction settles on the XRP ledger, institutions, they're going to be forced to warehouse XRP as collateral and liquidity buffers. That's when XRP graduates from crypto asset to financial infrastructure. And once it's infrastructure, supply doesn't trade on exchange anymore, everyone. It gets locked in the pipes of global finance. The end game, it's simple. XRP doesn't just ride. It's going to become indispensable. This price is going to shoot up. Everyone laughed when Bitcoin was $1. People said, you're wasting your money. This is magic internet money. It's never going to account to anything. It then hit 17,000. It then hit 69,000. It is now trading over $100,000. And you have people and institutions like BlackRock and Larry Fink calling for a $700,000 Bitcoin. This was an asset that used to be $1. If you think that XRP, an asset with a real use case, with real utility, that's going to have the same path forward as Bitcoin when we look at ETFs, when we look at the supply shock factor, but we're adding in utility on top of that that's solving a $10 plus trillion issue in the world. If you think that XRP is just going to be $3, $4, or $5, and it's going to solve a $10 plus trillion problem, and that's not even tapping into the bond market, folks, you're going to be on the sidelines and you're going to be waiting, and you're going to wait and wait and wait, and it's going to be too late. Just like the people who could have bought Bitcoin at $1, they're still on the sidelines. Now is the time. Let's bring this all home. Let's lock this in. The lawsuit gave XRP clarity. Over-the-counter desk, they're draining the supply. Banks, they're locking XRP as working capital. The XRP ETFs, which are coming in October, they could vacuum up what's left. And the bond market, folks, that's the final boss. It's game over if XRP taps into the bond market. This is what a supply shock looks like. Coins disappearing, demand rising, and exchanges are running dry right before reprices violently upward. If you're not prepared, you're going to wake up one day and XRP is going to be gone from exchanges. And you're going to be chasing. So smash that like button, share that video with the one person that needs to hear this, and tell me in the comments, do you think OTC is already running dry? And if you're ready to stop winging it, grab one of my limited one-on-one calls. We'll map out your XRP strategy so you're positioned before the fireworks. Because when supply vanishes, guess what? Only the prepared get paid.